Okay, so I finally figured out what Index 135 of the beta Pokedex of Gen 1 is. It's a Pokemon that we have never really seen before because it was scrapped from both the beta version and I would say they probably just didn't finish programming it in, and then maybe at some point they just decided to get rid of it. So, but we had evidence of the screenshot. And nobody knew for the longest time what Pokemon it was, but it is in fact a baby Cubone, and I'm going to explain. You see, or baby Kangaskhan if you want to call it that, because I don't. But anyways, this is what we know. So, when Pokemon first came out, the final versions of the game, we had 151 Pokemon in the final release of the game. The problem was a lot of content was cut due to cartridge limitations. This much people know. And it's also been confirmed by the game designers, even the creator of Pokemon stated that at some point all the ideas they wanted to use, they didn't want to scrap the games because they just decided to. They kind of were forced at the time. And then over time they still have this stuff on record, but maybe they just haven't decided to go back and put it in. Being Pokemon is a series where there's tons of stuff you can do in it. There's no doubt that that's they crossed their mind at one point. So anyways, and they've also confirmed that when Pokemon Gen 1 was being made, there was at least 200 Pokemon they made. And then when Gen 2 came out, there was actually 350 Pokemon that were made. However, some of them never saw the light of day. And they were also confronted, unless they did some serious advanced hacking, even when Gen 2 came out, they probably wouldn't have been able to exceed past 255 anyways. Maybe that's why there was only 251, because of coding issues. And 8-bit can only go past a single integer. Integer can only go past like 255. And after that, it crashes. So anyways, it's basic programming issues are the reason why this stuff never saw the light of day. But anyways, this is basically the evidence, though. So if you stare at this image, there's three sides to it. The left side is the back sprite of it with its, kind of like Cubone with its skull on. I would argue this is very possible that, it's not just for Cubone, but it could be a Pokemon that's related to Cubone. This could be Orphan, the Pokemon that, the baby Kangaskhan. Because the thing is, Cubone is a baby Kangaskhan, but this could have been a Pokemon before Kangaskhan. This could have been a Pokemon that they were still trying to figure out what to do with Cubone. It could have just been a beta Cubone, but I would argue that it's, Cubone was supposed to evolve into it, because later on, Gen 1 was supposed to have baby form Pokemon. Like, if you look at, it's, again, this whole thing is really confusing, but we'll try to simplify this. And there was a lot of Pokemon that were created. Some of them were taken out, and then they were actually replaced with Gen 2 Pokemon, but then they realized they took those Pokemon out, and then when Gen 2 came out, they put those Pokemon in, plus the ones in before. Again, there's a lot of ideas. You really have to look at, like, what ideas were scrapped and which ones weren't, but for argument's sake, let's just focus on this, though. This is definitely a baby Cubone, or a baby Kangaskhan, because if you look at the very bottom image portion of it, this is you could see the body, and the way it turns its head and it has its mouth open. There's another image on the internet that kind of has the same idea, where Cubone's kind of like, or Kangaskhan's kind of looking up, but with its head peeled back, or like sort of facing us, like it's curious. It's looking like kind of like it's looking up at the sky, awing. And then this would just be like the has to be Orphan, or rather the baby Kangaskhan, baby Cubone. Because also found in the beta version, we had the Pokemon that, and the way the theory goes, is that before we were convinced that Cubone, Marowak, and Kangaskhan were somehow related, but there wasn't any evidence. However, there was the Guardia evolution, where it was basically Marowak would evolve into a Guardia. Now, it's very possible that Guardia was supposed to be a male Kangaskhan, but with the DNA of a Marowak. And so Kangaskhan would have been, I wouldn't say two different completely evolutionary lines, but it would be like, you know, a Marowak that's a female would evolve into a Kangaskhan, if that somehow worked like that. Either that, or because the Kangaskhan and Marowak at some point are related. They have to be. Cubone, Marowak, Kangaskhan. So, however this works, that you would have Kangaskhan and Marowak evolve, but it's very likely though that Cubone and Marowak were somehow, you know, they were related somehow, whether they were parents or, you know, just, you know, part of the family line, adopted parents. I mean, I'd have to double check, but I'm not convinced that it's anything else. It's got to be a baby Cubone because it wears its skull on its head, or maybe this is what Cubone looked like without the skull. So it's another Cubone, or it'd be Cubone is the baby version right now. But maybe there was a Pokemon even before it, kind of like Vulpix, where, like in the last version of the game, you know, we had an idea that Vulpix evolved into Ninetales, and every time a Ninetales breeded, it would be a Vulpix. However, there was evidence to believe that there was even a Pokemon that was even before Vulpix. So, you know, you kind of see the idea, you know, and it wouldn't surprise me that they cut a lot of this content, because Marowak was supposed to be, you know, Marowak and Cubone were supposed to be related to Kangaskhan, because before we had the Dexter entries that stated that, you know, once the mother dies, it wears its skull on its head. So maybe at first, you know, before Kangaskhan and Cubones got involved, you know, their whole family was just kind of misunderstood. We didn't really understand, like, they were looking out for each other, but like the Pokemon that would observe them and all that wouldn't really know like how connected they really truly were, because they really didn't understand which was which. You know, Cubone obviously being the baby, Marowak being the Pokemon it evolves into, because it, you know, Cubone evolves into Marowak, and its skull, its mother's skull, becomes the skull. So it's almost like it's wearing two skulls instead of one, sort of. You know, it fuses with it perfectly. You get the Cubone skull, and because the Cubone's a baby still, and then once it evolves, it gets another skull over its real face, because, you know, it fused with the mother's. So it's interesting, it really is. And then if Marowak was to evolve again, it would basically look after the baby Cubone. Whatever, you know, because this whole thing, it already gets confusing, but bear with me here. You know, as far as the video games go, Kangaskhan and Cubone, there's evidence to believe that even though they're two evolutionary lines, they're connected somehow, one way or another. And in final conclusion, I would argue that at some point, yes, the baby that was inside the Kangaskhan was supposed to be a Pokemon at some point that you could initially get. And then that Pokemon could have either evolved into Kangaskhan, or it evolved into a baby Cubone, if that makes sense. Because again, Guardia was supposed to be like a male Kangaskhan, and then like Marowak, a female Kangaskhan, would be like a male. Could have been a female Marowak, or something along those lines. It's I don't know. What do you guys think? But I'm not gonna stop until I let other people know this, because I feel like we're on to something with this. We finally figured out, like, out of the 190 Pokemon, oh, actually, you know, we're getting closer to really identifying a lot of beta designs. But this is one to throw out there to really, we're like one step closer to figuring all of this out.